Have you ever woken up feeling weighed down, as if an invisible force is holding you back, even though nothing obvious has changed? It's subtle at first, a quiet, creeping sense that something isn't right. But as the day goes on, that feeling grows, casting a shadow over your thoughts, your mood, and your ability to focus. Most of us just push these feelings aside, thinking they're temporary. But what if I told you that this isn't random, that there are hidden forces, mental silent killers, at work? These silent killers operate quietly in the background, sabotaging your mental well-being without you even realizing it. They feed on your insecurities, fuel your doubts, and over time, chip away at your peace of mind. We don't recognize them because they're not loud or obvious. They're subtle, sneaky, and they blend into our daily thoughts and habits. In this video, we're going to uncover 5 of these silent killers, and more importantly, we'll explore how you can confront them head-on using the wisdom of Stoic philosophy. By recognizing these invisible forces, you'll gain powerful tools to break free. Imagine waking up each day feeling lighter, stronger, and more resilient, with a clear mind and a sense of purpose. Stay with me until the end. The last 2 killers may be the very ones that affect you the most. Are you ready to take back control? The insights you're about to gain might just be the turning point you need to master your mental well-being and transform your daily life. Silent Killer 1. Negative self-talk. Let's start with the most insidious of the silent killers, negative self-talk. It's subtle, quiet, almost like a background noise in your mind. At first, it's easy to ignore. But over time, these seemingly harmless whispers grow louder, slowly eroding your confidence and your sense of self-worth. And here's the thing, most of the time, we don't even notice it happening. Negative self-talk can take many forms. It might sound like, "I'm just not good enough," or "I always mess things up." These thoughts sneak in when we make a mistake or face a setback. They feed on our insecurities, magnifying small failures into huge shortcomings. But here's the reality. Negative self-talk doesn't reflect the truth. It reflects our fears, our doubts, and often our learned patterns from past experiences. Let's put this into a real-life example. Imagine you're at work and you've been assigned a new, challenging project. As soon as you sit down to start, thoughts begin creeping in. "I'm not qualified for this. What if I fail?" This negativity starts as a seed but quickly grows, and before you know it, you're paralyzed, unable to even begin. This is the silent killer at work. It stops us from taking risks, from pushing ourselves, and from truly experiencing our potential. But here's the solution, and it's simpler than you might think. Start by challenging those negative thoughts. When you hear that inner voice say, "I can't do this," stop and ask yourself, is that really true? What evidence do I have to support it? Most of the time, you'll realize these fears have no real foundation. By questioning the negative thoughts, you take away their power. Another powerful Stoic technique is reframing. When something doesn't go as planned, instead of saying, "I failed," try thinking, "This is an opportunity to learn." Stoicism teaches us that our power lies not in what happens to us, but in how we respond. Every setback becomes a stepping stone if we choose to see it that way. So remember, this first silent killer is like a thief in the night, stealing your potential with every unchallenged thought. But you have the power to silence it. By becoming aware, by questioning, and by reframing, you reclaim control over your mind. Reflect for a moment. How often do you find yourself engaging in negative self-talk without even noticing it? Recognizing it is the first step to breaking free. And this is only the beginning. Stay with me, because the next killer is just as sneaky, and if left unchecked, can be just as damaging. Silent Killer 2. Comparison with others. Now that we've uncovered the dangers of negative self-talk, let's dive into another silent killer that creeps into our lives. Just as easily, the habit of comparing ourselves to others. It's a trap that seems harmless at first, but it quietly eats away at our confidence. our peace, and ultimately, our happiness. It's like a poison that doesn't hit all at once. Instead, it drips slowly, affecting how we see ourselves and the world around us. As Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, wisely said, "Do not seek to be better than others, but better than your past self." Stoicism teaches us that comparison to others distracts us from our true purpose and value. The moment we fixate on what others have, who they are, or what they've achieved, we lose sight of our own growth and journey. Imagine this. You're scrolling through social media, and every image you see is a snapshot of someone else's highlight reel, their perfect vacations, their career achievements, or their seemingly flawless lives. These curated glimpses can make it feel like everyone else has it all together, while you're just struggling. But here's the reality. What you're seeing is just one side of the story. People rarely show their failures, their struggles, or the doubts they face. When we compare ourselves to these illusions, we're holding ourselves to impossible standards. Now let's take a step back and think about what happens every time we compare. We end up chasing goals that aren't truly ours. We may start to want things not because they align with our values, but because we think they'll make us more like the people we envy. And in doing so, we lose the connection to what genuinely fulfills us. Let's put this in another context. Say you're at work and a colleague gets a promotion or receives public recognition for their achievements. Instead of feeling inspired, you feel inadequate. Thoughts start creeping in. Why didn't I get recognized? Or maybe I'm not as valuable here. But remember, we rarely see the sacrifices others make, the challenges they face, or the insecurities they struggle with behind closed doors. When we compare, we're judging ourselves without the full picture. So how can we overcome this silent killer? Here's where Stoic principles offer clarity. First, practice gratitude daily. When you're tempted to compare, remind yourself of what you have, what you've achieved, and the qualities that make you unique. Instead of focusing on what others have, shift your attention to what you're grateful for in your own life. Another powerful Stoic approach is to set personal goals that align with your values and measure yourself only against who you were yesterday. Ask yourself, am I a bit better, a bit wiser, or a bit stronger than I was last week or last year? That's the only comparison that matters. The Stoics believe that real progress isn't about outdoing others, but about constant self-improvement. Epictetus also reminds us to focus on what we can control. When you find yourself comparing, pause and ask, am I seeking approval or am I honoring my values? Redirect your energy to things that reflect who you are and what you truly value. This shift in mindset is liberating. It frees you from the need for validation and allows you to pursue what brings you real satisfaction. Now, here is something practical you can do today. Take 5 minutes and write down 3 things you're grateful for that have nothing to do with anyone else's life or achievements. Reflect on your own journey and let go of the habit of measuring yourself against others. After that, write down 1 goal you have that truly aligns with your values. It doesn't need to be big, it just needs to be meaningful to you. Reflect on this. When was the last time you felt diminished because you compared yourself to someone else? Your journey is unique and real growth comes from within. Remember, the second silent killer, comparison, takes us away from ourselves. But by focusing on gratitude, personal growth, and what we can control, we reclaim our own path. And trust me, we're just getting started. Stay with me, because the next silent killer is even more elusive, one that has held back so many people from realizing their true potential. Silent killer 3. Fear of failure. Now that we've explored the dangers of negative self-talk and the habit of comparing ourselves to others, let's move to another silent killer that can be even more paralyzing, the fear of failure. It's one of those invisible chains that hold us back, often without us even realizing it. This fear creeps in subtly and slowly becomes a constant shadow, influencing our choices and decisions. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about that for a moment. How many times have we allowed the mere thought of failure to stop us before we've even tried? Stoicism teaches us that most of the suffering we experience is due to the fears we create in our minds, not because of actual events. This silent killer thrives on imagined outcomes, on the what-ifs that we let spiral out of control. Let's dive into a real-life example. Imagine you've been thinking about starting a new project, maybe a business idea, or pursuing a new career path. The initial excitement is there, but soon enough, doubts start to creep in. What if I fail? What if people think I'm not good enough? And just like that, the fear of failure becomes a roadblock. It convinces you to stay in your comfort zone, to avoid risk, but at what cost? Now let's take it to another level. Imagine wanting to learn a new skill, maybe an instrument or a language. You're excited, but almost instantly you hear the voice of doubt. What if I'm terrible at it? Or people will laugh if I mess up. This fear convinces you that it's safer not to try at all. And in that moment, the fear of failure has stolen an opportunity for growth, for joy, for new experiences. It keeps us from exploring, from taking those small, brave steps towards self-improvement. The cost of giving in to this fear is enormous. Every opportunity missed, every dream abandoned, becomes a part of the life unlived. And here is the painful truth. Fear of failure doesn't protect us, it limits us. When we choose safety over growth, we're choosing a life defined by limitations instead of possibilities. But how can we start breaking free from this fear? Stoicism offers us a powerful tool known as premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This practice involves visualizing potential challenges, not to dwell on them, but to be prepared and resilient when they arise. For example, if you are afraid of failing at a new project, spend time imagining the obstacles you might face. But instead of letting these thoughts discourage you, think about how you would respond to each challenge. This mental exercise helps turn fear into preparation. The purpose of premeditatio malorum isn't to focus on what might go wrong, but to confront those fears head-on, to understand that we're resilient and capable of handling setbacks. When we practice this, we're mentally training ourselves to face challenges with strength, knowing that whatever comes, we have the power to overcome it. Another useful Stoic principle is embracing failure as part of the learning process. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Instead of seeing failure as something to avoid, view it as a step forward. Each failure is an opportunity to learn, adapt, and grow stronger. Now here is something practical you can do right now. Think of a situation where fear of failure held you back. Write down what you were afraid of, then ask yourself, what would I have done differently if fear hadn't been a factor? Reflecting on this can be eye-opening. Often, we realize that the fear was more intimidating than the reality of what might have happened. Imagine what your life would look like if you weren't held back by the fear of failure. Think of the new experiences you could have, the skills you'd build, and the satisfaction of knowing you faced challenges with courage. The freedom you gain by letting go of fear is life-changing. Remember, this third silent killer, fear of failure, is like a thief in the night. It sneaks in, convincing us that it's better to stay safe, to avoid taking risks. But by facing it head-on, by preparing for setbacks, and by embracing failure as part of the journey, we begin to reclaim our freedom. And there is more. If you think fear of failure is the worst, stay with me, because the next silent killer is one that's even more deeply rooted, and it has the power to influence every decision we make. We're halfway through, and the final two silent killers might surprise you. If you haven't already, subscribe now to make sure you don't miss any future insights that can help you take control of your mind. Silent Killer 4. Need for approval. Now that we've explored how the fear of failure can hold us back, let's dive into another silent killer that's equally deceptive, But even more persistent, the need for approval. It's a craving that drives so many of our actions, often without us realizing it. This need becomes a constant, shaping our decisions, our values, and ultimately, our sense of self-worth. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them." The Stoics believe that true strength comes from within, from not allowing external opinions to control our inner peace. Yet, so often, we find ourselves bending our actions, our choices, and even our beliefs to fit the expectations of others. Imagine this. You're at a gathering, and you find yourself hesitating to speak up or share your opinions because you're worried about what others might think. Or perhaps you agree with something you don't actually believe in, just to avoid conflict or rejection. In moments like these, our need for approval becomes a barrier to authenticity. It stops us from being true to ourselves and instead makes us shape ourselves into what we think others want to see. Now let's take it a step further. This need for approval doesn't just influence our social interactions, it seeps into our career choices, our lifestyle, and even our relationships. Think about it. How many times have you hesitated to pursue a passion, speak your mind, or make a big life change because you feared what others might say? This silent killer convinces us that acceptance from others is essential for our happiness, but it's a trap that leaves us feeling unfulfilled. So how do we free ourselves from this need for constant validation? Stoicism offers us a profound tool, the concept of self-approval. It teaches us to value our own judgment and inner alignment over the fleeting opinions of others. When we live in harmony with our values, we no longer need external validation to feel complete. Here is a practical exercise for you. Next time you're in a situation where you feel that need for approval creeping in, pause and ask yourself, is this truly what I want, or am I doing it to please others? If it's the latter, take a moment to reflect on why you're seeking that approval. Often, we find that the opinions we chase don't actually align with what brings us real fulfillment. Another Stoic practice is to embrace solitude and introspection. Spend time alone without external influences and reflect on what you truly value. Marcus Aurelius often practiced solitude to ground himself and reconnect with his inner compass. When we step away from the noise of others, we gain clarity on what truly matters to us. Let's take this even further. Imagine a life where your choices are driven purely by your own values and desires, free from the weight of others' expectations. How much lighter, how much more fulfilled would that life feel? The approval you give yourself is worth more than any validation you could ever receive from others. Remember, this fourth silent killer, the need for approval, is like a shadow that constantly follows us, subtly shaping our actions and thoughts. But by practicing self-approval and embracing solitude, we reclaim our freedom to be true to ourselves. And as we prepare to move forward, stay with me, because the final silent killer is the most elusive of them all, a force that can drain our mental strength without us even realizing it. Silent Killer 5. Lack of presence. We've come to the final and perhaps the most elusive of the silent killers, the lack of presence. This one doesn't shout or demand attention. Instead, it quietly slips into our lives, keeping us anchored in the past or constantly reaching for the future, while robbing us of the one thing that truly matters, the present moment. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself?" Stoicism teaches us that the present moment is all we truly have. Yet, so often, our minds drift into regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. In doing so, we miss the richness of now, the chance to experience life fully. Let's consider a simple example. Imagine you're spending time with family or friends, but instead of being engaged, your mind is elsewhere, replaying a conversation from yesterday or worrying about tomorrow's tasks. You're physically present, but mentally, you're somewhere else entirely. This silent killer, the lack of presence, robs you of meaningful connections and the beauty of everyday moments. It goes beyond just moments with loved ones. Think about how often you find yourself rushing through tasks or wishing for the next break instead of being engaged with what you're currently doing. The Stoics believed that each moment, no matter how ordinary, has value. By being present, we honor our experiences and live fully. So how do we combat this silent killer? Stoicism offers us practical methods, one of which is the practice of mindfulness, an awareness and appreciation of the present. When your mind starts drifting to regrets or worries, gently bring it back to where you are right now. Focus on your surroundings, your breathing, or the task at hand. This simple practice can profoundly shift your experience of life. Another Stoic tool is the daily reflection. Marcus Aurelius would often end his day by reflecting on his actions, asking himself if he had truly lived according to his values that day. This practice grounds us in the present, helping us appreciate each day as it unfolds and align ourselves with what truly matters. Here is something you can try today. Take 5 minutes to just be present. Set aside any distractions and focus on your breathing. Observe your thoughts without judgment, bringing your awareness back to the moment each time your mind wanders. This small practice can help you reconnect with yourself and the world around you. Imagine how your life might change if you spent more time fully present. How much richer would each moment feel if you could let go of regrets and worries? Presence is not only a gift to yourself, but also to those around you. When you're truly engaged, you bring more depth and meaning to every interaction. So remember, this fifth silent killer, lack of presence, is like a thief that steals from us moment by moment. But by cultivating mindfulness and reflecting daily, we can reclaim those moments and live with a greater sense of clarity and purpose. And with that, you now have the awareness to identify and confront each of these silent killers, turning them from obstacles into stepping stones on your path to inner peace and resilience. We've now uncovered each of the 5 silent killers that quietly sabotage our mental well-being. From the subtle erosion of negative self-talk to the heavy weight of seeking approval. And finally, the quiet thief that steals our present, the lack of presence. Each of these forces can hold us back. And yet, with awareness and the tools of Stoic philosophy, we can reclaim our peace and focus on what truly matters. As Marcus Aurelius once said, waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one. These silent killers are not merely obstacles, they're invitations to grow. By recognizing and facing them, we transform these barriers into stepping stones toward inner clarity and fulfillment. Imagine living each day fully present, where your actions are driven not by fear, comparison, or the need for approval, but by a deep sense of purpose and inner calm. This is the gift of Stoicism, a path to reclaiming control, finding strength within, and living in each precious moment. So as you move forward, take these lessons with you. Embrace Stoicism, not just as a philosophy, but as a way to practice presence in your daily life. If you found these insights valuable, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't miss out on future content that can guide you to a stronger, calmer mind. By subscribing and sharing, we can bring more people into this journey of self-mastery and resilience and help us grow together. Remember, the present moment is the greatest gift you can give yourself and those around you. Every step toward mastering these silent killers is a step toward mastering your mind and living fully in the present. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay grounded and live with purpose.